Pursuit of profit, otherwise known as the old grind, the old rat race, chasing the buck, or what have you. Looks familiar, doesn't it? It gives you a jolt sometimes when it hits you that everything you do or don't do in this business directly affects profits. Of course, not everyone sees it just that way. Now, you take our friend Arthur over there, grocery department manager. You know who he really is? He's you.
Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to touch on deductibles for reselling. I get that question a lot. A lot of other questions I get related to that as well, and I thought I would address it just a little bit. Many people are confused on what that deduction actually is. A deduction basically lowers the amount of income that you will have to pay tax on. That's basically what it does. It has to be directly tied to your business. A good deduction is clothing, for example. A lot of people ask me why I wear the Hollister. One, it's where I take my son to, and I just buy shirts because I'm there. And two, I can use those as a business expense if I only wear them for work. So if a Hollister shirt is in a video, that's the only place it usually is shown, or I will wear it for working or picking up sourcing or something along that line. That's a deductible. That's a money saver as well, because if I ruin clothing or anything like that, it's covered under that expense. And I can buy it again as a work expense, literally in that way. So like a good pair of shoes that you have to have, or boots. A lot of people wear steel-toed boots, including myself, if I'm out in certain locations for safety. I only wear those steel-toed boots for sourcing. It's the only reason I would need them. So it's a work expense. It's something that's deductible. If I'm out sourcing all day long, or I'm out on the road and I'm only doing work-related items, I'm out of town and I have to get something to eat, that's a deductible expense. It's something that I can deduct from what I would pay in taxes. So it saves you the tax aspect of it. I still had to spend the money. I'm not going to get that money back, but I'm not going to pay taxes on that expense of it. It's going to be deducted from my revenue because, again, it's tied to my work-related thing. Other deductibles, obviously, are if you're working out of your house. That can be a deductible to a certain amount per square foot. You can deduct electricity. You can deduct water that's used for the business based on the percentage of usage of that building. Let's say you live in a 1,000 square foot house and 20% of that you use for business. So you've got 200 square feet of space for business, and that is the deductible aspect of it. Now, there's several different ways you can do that. I am not an accountant, though. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do for your business. I always recommend everybody talking to an accountant for this sort of thing, to know what's right, what's wrong, what you're allowed to do, and how you can do it. You have to keep receipts for most of this stuff. At least a generalized note where you got something, what you spent it on. You can't always get a receipt. You can carry a receipt tablet with you in your pocket and fill it out there and have somebody sign it. Worst case scenario, you make a note in a journal and write, hey, this person didn't have a receipt. That's basically the gist of it. But I save receipts for everything, or try to get a written receipt for everything, even at a flea market or something along that line. But those are all expenses. Pencils, you got to buy pencils, pens, a deductible expense. All this kind of stuff can come off your expense. So basically, let's say you did $100,000 in sales, $50,000 of that is just for the product. So you have a $50,000 gross profit, gross, before everything's coming out. So after you deduct all the expenses, you come down and your net profit will be at the bottom. So let's say you've got $10,000 in expenses. You take that off there, you're down to $40,000. You're going to have to minus the taxes. Let's just say it's $10,000. So now we're down to $30,000 would be your net profit. Again, after all those deductions are taken out of there. Keep track of everything, though. Deductions are a good way to increase your profits. I know this part of it for many people is boring. You don't think about it. It's just not in your repertoire of things that you have experienced or had to deal with before. This is another aspect of reselling that you really need to dig into and look into, because it can save you some good money. It can really increase your profits if you're taking deductions when you're legally allowed to. Many people who are running a business out of their house won't know or won't get an accountant and may not even deduct part of their electricity, their phone, or whatever else they're using for their business. It's all an expense. It all should be deductible from your business, so you're not paying on it. If you rented a building to run that business in away from your house, your expenses would be even more, because you'd be covering the entire cost of the building instead of just the percentage. So it's actually a money saver all around. So deductions are something you should look into and take advantage of. Get a logbook. Write in an Excel is usually the best recommendation in my book, and keep backups of everything. We keep envelopes for receipts, and I'll split them by the month. I'll split them up by the category. We've got office supplies, admin expenses, just stuff along that line. Getting a meal on the road would be a travel expense, things along that line. Now, you can categorize expenses basically by your own categorization of them, like admin costs, postage, and things like that. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're uniform with what you're doing, not changing it around. So if you pick one method to keep track of all your deductions, you stick with that method. Again, I am not an accountant. You're going to have to seek the expertise of an accountant to be safe on this. I would always recommend doing that. We do have accountants. We do use that service. It's much easier to pay somebody to do all the hassle, the headache, and the math, and they are responsible for it to make sure that it's correct. We researched them. We did all the proper steps. But again, those are all deductions. Even the expense that I pay for an accountant is a deductible expense. It's something I have to cover for my business. So there's just so many options for deductibles, as long as they're legit. Now, if you go to the IRS's website, there's a list of information you can download that specifically state what is and isn't a deductible. I would honestly recommend every single seller out there looking into that. Many people are losing money and paying taxes on stuff that is officially a deductible. So you just got to do it right. A good example is when you're running a business out of your house. We'll go back to the 20%. 20% of your house is filled up by your business. That 20% has got to be sectioned off into just the business area. Whether you have a basement, an attic, a separate room, you have to keep all of the business-tied information, merchandise, everything you relate to the business has to stay in that 200 square foot area, that 20%. You can't have it all over and do estimates. It has to be specifically and only tied to business use. So for us, we don't store personal goods in our business area. In our personal area, we don't sell business goods. So you keep a separation, just like you would with bank accounts, business bank accounts, just for the business versus your personal bank accounts, just for you. I don't care what kind of business you're doing, even a sole proprietor, that's the same basics you'll want to have. Multiple accounts is always better in my book, having a accounts receivable, accounts payable. It depends on, of course, what type of business you have. We have employees, so I want two separate accounts for payment-wise. Again, we have an accountant that does handle our employment aspect of it, so we have to have an account that they have access to as well. So deductions, that's the bottom line. This is a work shirt. You won't see me wear it anywhere else but for work, a meeting, a video. Hollister shirts, same thing. Tax deductions. So this is our money, my money in this aspect. When you're running your business, it's your money. So every dime counts. Every dime you save through deductions or any other aspect of this is a dime you don't have to bust your butt to make. So every dime you're saving by doing stuff like this, deductions and keeping track of everything, not losing receipts, marking everything down that you have to purchase for your business is going to save you money. Now, it's a lot more expensive to source items, to list items, to ship items than it would be to just simply keep track of your expenses and keep track of your deductions. Penny saved is a penny earned, and that's true all the way down to the bottom line. Every cent, again, as I said, that I save through deductions or expense reports by making sure I track it all is a penny I don't have to worry about earning. The bottom line is what matters. Whatever you do, protect the bottom line. And deductions are a perfect example of it. If you're not using them, you're not doing something like this, why ruin your own clothes? Why waste your own pencils? Why waste your own tape? Why go buy something that is a business expense and not report it as a business expense? If you're out on the road sourcing and you're stuck eating while you're out, that's a business expense. You have no other way to eat while you are out. It's tied to your business. It's a deduction. So all of these things matter, and they matter very specifically to your bottom line, as I said. So deductions are just a touch on this. Get an accountant, talk to somebody, know what you can and can't do, know how to keep track of it, know how to write it down. Again, I am not an accountant. I am not a legal expert in any way on accounting. We have hired accountants. But that's what I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.